So today I'm going to be canning some apricots. I'm going to be using a medium syrup. So I've taken 3.5 cups of sugar and 5 cups of water, and I'm just heating that up over the stove, just like so. So I want to bring that up to a boil. I want to get that nice and hot. I don't want to overcook it because I'm going to be adding the apricots, and I also don't want those to get really soft because we are going to have to can them. As soon as my apricots are ready, I'm going to be putting them into hot jars and getting them going in the canner. So one of the nicest things about preparing apricots and canning them is that you don't have to worry about peeling them. And peeling them is always a lot of work. There's ways that you can peel them that kind of makes it a little bit easier for you. But overall, it's just, kind of a more difficult process. You need to get the peelings off of them. And, sometimes it makes the fruit a little bit more, just susceptible to getting too soft, that kind of thing. So these apricots are ripe, but they are firm. So that's going to help us in the canning process because we're going to be putting these apricots into a nice hot liquid. So my sugar has already dissolved. So I'm going to be getting these, I'm basically going to be putting these apricots into this hot syrup. So it's a great process. It's fast, it's easy to do, and then we're going to ladle these into hot jars. So let me get these going, and I'll put them in the pan, and I'll show you exactly how this works once we get them started putting them into jars. And if you have any really big apricots, you can always cut them into quarters. I found that, typically you just, cutting them in half is going to be more than enough. And these are very sweet apricots. I actually picked them this morning off of my tree, and they're just beautiful, and they're just as delicious as they are beautiful. Okay, I have a nice big pan full of apricots. They're hot, the liquid is hot. I'm just going to go ahead and spoon these into jars. I'm going to try to leave out as much liquid as possible until I get these pushed down in the jars. Now some people actually, go to all the trouble to, lay them down a certain way. I like to pack mine hot so that I can get as many in as possible. Plus it also just helps the apricots to, cook up. And I don't know, I much prefer hot packing over cold packing. I just feel like you get a lot more product in your jar. So I'm just gonna push some of these down. I'm just gonna run this non-metallic thing right down the side of my apricot jar. And just make sure I get out as many of these bubbles as possible, and then I'm going to put a little bit more juice in. It's actually syrup. I always call it juice, and we're actually going to fill these up to a 1/2 inch headspace. Looking good. Do this one more time just because I've got liquid in here now, and you can see it actually comes down quite a bit because of these air bubbles. So you're going to put a little bit more liquid. There you go. So the process of canning and preserving your food, it's not a difficult process. It's just something that you really have to follow directions. You need to make sure that what you're doing is safe for your family. And I think the most important thing is just take your time. If it's not something you're super familiar with, you need to be familiar with it because this is food that can actually hurt your family if it's not done right. Now, it's oftentimes easier to can up these different products in quarts, but for me, it's pretty much just me that eats all this, and this is a lot of stuff for, you know, one person to go through. Even in a year, it can be quite challenging. So I'm just, you know, working away on it, trying to think of different things that I'm not stuck with 40 jars of jam and things like that. That doesn't do me any good. It doesn't last forever. Even if you really, you know, follow all the directions and such, I just can't eat that much jam and things. So it's really important to me to try to, you know, have smaller batches of things when I can. Now, you know, canned peaches, canned apricots, excuse me, things like that, you can always eat them. You can always open a jar of fruit with your meal. There's always room for it. So I got 7 pints of apricots starting to boil in my canner. So as soon as that comes up to a little bit hotter boil, I'm going to add a little bit more water. But this is a water bath canner. I'm going to can it for 20 minutes, then let it sit for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to take them out. Okay, I've had the apricots cooking in the water bath canner now for 20 minutes. So I'm just going to remove these and let these sit on the counter until they're nice and cooled off. Usually I wait until the next day. I just want to make sure that all of the jars seal. So this is probably going to be my canned apricot recipe for probably the last one for this week. I've actually made 3 different apricot products this, you know, today, since I picked that big bowl of apricots. And so I'm just going to let these sit on the counter, and then I will clean them and label them tomorrow and put them away. So there you go. So these are my apricots. I ended up with 7 jars in a medium simple syrup, and I think they're going to be really delicious. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to see how I do this, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.